There is a rapidly worsening and noticeable problem with Genshin Impact. Well, there's tons of problems with this game, but the only time a person would unironically say a game is perfect is when they've either had one too many or are on some of that good Not judging. But in all seriousness, while this channel's official lifespan has only been around a couple months at this point, I think most of my viewers can agree that I like to look at things in a big picture. Not so much the finer details, like how good a character is when used in this very specific way, with a very specific team composition, and so on. The idea behind my videos largely focuses on applying to the greater audience, the majority if you will. One such video I made in the past voiced my concerns about Genshin's character design, and for those who haven't seen it, I highly suggest you do so after this one. But as a quick refresher, there are 5 issues I brought up that may not seem like a big deal right now, but will almost certainly fester the longer they remain unaddressed, cracks in the foundation. 1. Character abilities are oversimplified, which can lead to potential design redundancy and overlap once the roster significantly increases in size. 2. Characters follow their elemental tropes too faithfully, which once again might make it difficult for new ones of that element to stand out. 3. Balance issues, what with day 1 units like Bennett and Shinto vastly outperforming new supports even now. 4 is gatekeeping the full potential of high-value characters behind external sources like weapons or event-exclusive things. In fairness, there is actual monetary justification behind that, but the one in particular I think deserves more attention is number 5, the chronological order of each country released into VAT. Though there's a lot of things wrong with this gameplay, one of the shining traits about Genshin is that of its world building. As of this moment, only Mondstadt, Liyue, and Inazuma are open to us, yet there's so much to absorb in one nation, let alone 7. Also, when you consider each land portraying a major country in the real world, Mondstadt being Germany, Liyue being China, and Inazuma Japan. Currently we're aware that Snezhnaya will be that of Russia. Assuming we're going to get a new region per version, that means we can reasonably expect to get 1 or 2 unlocked per year. But since Genshin is a gacha game, there will inevitably be a gradual increase in the effective power of new releases to incentivize players to pull for them over existing ones. Something that was on my mind was the possibility that by the time we reach later regions, characters from Mondstadt, Liyue, Inazuma, and even Sumeru will get power crept by Fontaine, Natlan, and Snezhnaya, begging the question, is it even worth retroactively going for older units later down the road? It could lead to a severe power discrepancy from one land to another. But there is one very serious problem that I, and I'm sure many of you, are now beginning to notice as more and more characters come out, and that is how inaccessible they are to new players, a problem that will only continue to get worse as Genshin ages. So today, we're going to take a quick look at the implications of new player lockout and how that could hurt the game's ability to maintain a steady stream of users. So arguably the biggest shortcoming with Genshin during its maiden voyage was that for all its beautiful presentation and interesting premise, there was hardly that much actual substance to the game once you sunk your teeth into it. In miHoYo's defense, that's every gacha game when it first comes out. A core part of their business model is to feed you content over an extended period of time to keep you hungry for more. Now, if you're joining Genshin for the very first time starting, say, 2022, you'll have a far different first impression of the game than day oneers, seeing as there's been over a year's worth of new content and quality of life adjustments. You have a lot more quests and content to explore before you hit that wall. So from that point of view, it's a good thing to start the game later down the road. It's kind of like waiting for an anime to finish airing so you can binge it all at once, instead of having to wait for one episode every week. On the other hand though, new players will find themselves running into a unique roadblock that veteran players never have and probably never will. Genshin's gacha system bears many similarities to other titles of the same genre, while doing things a bit less conventionally. For starters, there's an event banner and a standard banner. Event banners come with a featured 5-star character and 3 4-star characters with increased rates. When the event period ends, the 5-star character is taken off the shelves while any new 4-stars are put into the standard pool where they remain in perpetuity. The standard banner features only 5 5-star characters even to this very day: Keqing, Diluc, Jean, Mona, and Qiqi. So far, we haven't had any other 5-star units added to the permanent roster, which is quite surprising, as in almost every other gacha game they usually get thrown into the main pool right away or after their second banner, commonly known as a rerun. When you start off fresh, Mondstadt is the first region available to you, followed by Liyue I think around adventure rank 20 or so, which basically means right away. After that, the Archon quests take you to Inazuma, and until proven otherwise, we can assume that you're supposed to conduct your adventure in that order for the remaining 4 areas. In regards to new units, they're usually linked to the most recent locations. For the past 8 or so months, we've seen mostly characters from Inazuma, with the only 2 exceptions being Shinhe and Yunjin, which I'm guessing is purely for the Lantern Rite event. As far as characters from Mondstadt are concerned, Eula was the last remaining one back in May of 2021. Toma does originate from Mondstadt, but in light of requiring a smoldering pearl and fluorescent fungus, he is for all intents and purposes an Inazuman character. And that brings me to the issue with the way Genshin holds banners based on region. Characters from each region can only obtain the necessary materials required to reach their full potential in that region. While it does make for thematic congruity, it also means that if you're not at that point in the game, those units are practically unusable. Perhaps if you acquired Yayumiko and you're brand new to the game, you might be able to speedrun your way through story quests to unlock Inazuma in a day or two. Can the same be said for Sumeru, Fontaine, Natlan, or Snezhnaya? How long do you have to wait to actually be able to use that 5-star? Hours? Days? Weeks? Months? Location-specific ascension and talent materials are of little consequence for someone who's been playing at the cutting edge forever, but for a new player, it disconnects them from the natural pacing of the game, as the only 5 stars they can use are the 5 available in the standard banner all the way until they catch up to wherever the latest area is. See, in other gacha games, upgrading and leveling materials tend to be universal, as in it's one size fits all. Doesn't matter if the character is from the present day or 5 years ago, character-related items and drops are obtainable in dungeons or missions typically separate from the main story, done so intentionally to allow players to make use of whatever units they get their hands on, irrespective of the time period or circumstances in which they got them. While you may have a lot more overpowered characters for that point in the game compared to people who were there from day one, the new player experience is largely similar across the board. Thus, it makes gacha games surprisingly very accessible and easy to pick up. Am I saying it's worth it? Absolutely not. Gacha games are predatory as all hell, but if we cast aside the microtransactions and whatnot, they are designed in a way that you can easily get on them. It's not a time sink like World of Warcraft where you need to spend hundreds of hours just to call yourself an established player. Genshin is the only game that I can think of that localizes a character's leveling materials. Yes, the character XP manuals work on everyone, but talent books, character and weapon ascension materials, boss drops and such are exclusively locked to the region they originated from. Sure, it wouldn't be wise to rule out the possibility that we'll never see a banner for a character who originates from Mondstadt, but it's safe to say they won't be very common anymore, since MiHoYo is likely fitting in units for whatever region came out most recently into that schedule. Actually, even if the character belongs to an older region, there's a high chance they'll require materials from later down the road, just like a Shinhe. She's a Liyue resident but requires Dragonhair's false fins, which only drop from the Coral Defenders, a boss located in Enkanomiya, far into the Inazuma questline. If she's the first 5-star you pulled, and your adventure rank like 3, you won't be able to get her past level 40 until a good 30 to 40 hours of gameplay, maybe even more. That is if you're taking your time to explore the game thoroughly. In that regard, she's a useless character. You're gonna be stuck with 4-star characters and the original 5 unless MiHoYo decides to put in 5 stars that came out earlier such as Venti, Albedo, Child and Ganyu into the main pool. I'm not optimistic about it, as if that were the case, they would have done it already. Venti's rerun was way back in March of last year. We've never seen him since. It's been close to a year and he's still not in the regular pool. But okay, maybe he's gonna get a second rerun. That isn't sustainable anymore either. With every new 5-star release, that's another character that will need a rerun. Now we have over 20 of them with plenty more on the way. Since November of 2021, Genshin has started employing double banners on occasion, which I suppose is one way they could keep the circulation of older 5 stars. For how long though? Once the game reaches 40, 60, 80? Are we gonna have 5 banners running at the same time each cycle? I mean, in theory it can work, but it opens up a whole new can of worms. Imagine being a beginner player and having to choose between 5 different choices. New users would be overwhelmed with decision paralysis. No one would have any idea which ones to go for, leading to a very confusing initial experience. Mind you, gacha titles are naturally doomed to fall into oversaturation of characters sooner or later. If you look at any games still around from like the 2015 to 2017 era, then I wish you luck trying to wade through the hundreds or potentially thousands of characters. Fire Emblem Heroes has like 770 units, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius has I think like close to 1,000, Fate Grand Order says 333, so for a game that's been around for about a year and a half and has less than 50, they're not doing too badly. But with the way the game is structured around regional items, materials and whatnot, Genshin Impact has one of the worst new player experiences I've ever seen. All the same, it's not something that can easily be addressed by universalizing characters, so that all of them, regardless of where they originate from, can be upgraded with a single item. The essential experience of this game is so deeply ingrained in world exploration. It's one of the fundamental aspects that distinguishes Genshin from your traditional garden variety mobile gacha games and a measurable contributor to its commercial success and wide appeal. If Paimon's Bargains allowed you to purchase elemental fragments or character ascension materials beyond the common monster drops all for Mora, there won't be much of an incentive to explore pocket locations of the map like Seidai Island, Dragonspine, or future locations for reasons other than curiosity. If you were one such player who finds looking through every nook and cranny of a game's traversable terrain, then I suppose the convenience of being able to buy things remotely may be more appealing. But neither approach is more sound than the other when it comes to a game like this. Genshin Impact is special, even to gacha players who've played many other titles before, as it does things in a way no other can while retaining familiarity. Moreover, like most open-world RPGs, there's a lot of moving parts to it. By sectioning off an upcoming character's ascension materials to new areas, it strategically taps into a player's psychological reward factor. You have all the more reason to want to explore that new area if it's associated with the character you just pulled, and vice versa. If you find a drop that's tied to a relevant unit, that might make you want to pull for them. It ties into the old aphorism, when you pick up a hammer, everything becomes a nail. When you come across something new, you want to use it as much as you can, right? In that sense, initially, it might be seen as constraining for new players to have to wait until much later in their progression to be able to use characters from Inazuma, Sumuru, Fontaine, and so on. However, all the more reason for you to want to play the game and progress through things, right? Such motivation has the potential to compel and inspire player retention by taking advantage of their fear of missing out. And no, I'm not going to waste time going down the political rabbit hole that is the ethics behind that, but at its core, developers want people to play their game as much as possible for as long as possible. Done moderately, it can make your game very addicting. If done to an extreme, it can easily backfire. Remember, the main premise of Genshin is exploration, learning about the cultures, checking out the beautiful scenery, and diving into the deep icebergs that are each region's lore and background. There's so much to absorb, and gamers love discovery. That's what drives us to go the extra mile to see what else is hidden underneath. Preventing players from maxing out characters from future areas runs the risk of causing them to shift priorities and focus only on accessing the materials for that character. Consequently, they might disregard exploration and rush to the story quest as fast as possible, skipping all the many different places that I'm sure their development team works so hard to design. That is one major dilemma I think miHoYo will have to bring to the forefront soon. How can they tailor the new player experience for those who join later in the game's lifespan in such a way that it resembles day one players? I mean, for the rest of us, we're exploring everything there is to explore because we literally have nothing better to do in this game while we wait for the next expansion. But it's hard to predict how new players will react to this. One of the biggest ways the game draws in prospective users is that of character appeal. There are millions of fan art of Genshin's characters all across the internet, which is free publicity, and also a reason for players to want to make an account and give it a try. For instance, you're a big anime fan and you see people tweeting about Yaemiko, so you download the game, run your free wishes, and luckily manage to get her, only to find out she's locked at level 40 for a good 99% of the game's available content, since you can't access Ankanomiya until after you finish the Inazuma Archon quest. It's a very easy way to make players disillusioned, especially if they spend money on those characters. Of course, there's a plethora of options miHoYo can take to fix this. The first would obviously be to include older 5-star units in the standard pool. So while newer units may not be available to you right now, there still are a ton of fantastic ones like Hu Tao, Ganyu, Child, Venti, Kazuha, and such, who are still relevant now but in 2 or 3 years might fall off a bit. That is, unless Genshin somehow resists the all-consuming reach of power creep for that long. Then again, that's more of an indirect fix, and still doesn't address how we're going to allow new players to make use of characters from later regions. And truth be told, I can't think of anything for that one, because every choice requires that we make region-exclusive materials accessible before you even get there, and that ultimately diminishes the importance of fully exploring everything the game has to offer. But what do you guys think? Do you believe this is a big problem, or do you think I'm overreacting and spouting meaningless conjecture? Additionally, if you think there's a way miHoYo can solve the new player lockout without ruining the essential experience, what do you suggest? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm gonna end it off here though, so if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed. Consider following me on Twitter, joining my Discord server, and checking out my previous discussion videos, which includes the problem with new characters one if you haven't yet. But for now, thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in the next episode. Take care.